Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live today. We're really excited today. I've got a couple really great people today to chat about our topic today, which is AI trends. But before I get started, I wanted to make you aware of something really exciting that's going on in May with us. It is our Open Source Community Day, or OSS Day, as we say, on May 12th. This will be in person in Austin, Texas, as well as virtual. And both Nelson and Devanshi will be part of that day. And we're going to talk everything and anything about open source. So mark your calendars for that day, and we'll get back with you with some more information later on in the months. So let's get on to AI and all about AI. Let me start first, do a brief introduction of my great panel members. I'll start with Nelson. Nelson is our global Chief Technology Officer, and he's been involved in all different types of TIBCO's emerging technologies, including AI. And Devanshi, she is a Senior Cloud Architect for Microsoft. And once again, she's been involved in working with all different kinds of technology in driving digital transformation. So welcome, Nelson, and welcome, Devanshi. So before we get started and really start to kick this off, let me just talk a little bit about AI here. So as we know, probably back since 2019, even before that, AI has been very one of the hottest trends around there. We've seen a growth. Statistics have shown that this AI has grown 54% every year, and in many different ways. You know, we're seeing billions of dollars being spent, and it's been putting into software, putting into IoT devices, right? You call it into data wrangling, into IoTs, into natural language, into supply chains, you name it, we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it everywhere. So, hey, Nelson, so what have you seen is like the trends that are going on now? What's changed over the last few years? What have you seen?
Well, just a slide right into it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patty. And thank you to Devanshi for joining us here today. Looking forward to this. I could go through a whole entire list. I'll pick one, and then I'll let Devanshi continue with some of the items I know that she runs into on a daily basis. I think when you look at it, AI has really exploded, as you mentioned, in large part because of now the capabilities that we have in terms of compute power. So, of course, the cloud, I think, and the way in which the hyperscalers have developed their compute capabilities have really allowed then AI to kind of move from this is what we're doing behind the scenes, maybe more in a research-oriented fashion, to something that's much more open, embedded in applications that we work with every day, and even getting to the point where you get things like deepfakes where you're not even sure if you're talking to the real person or not. There's those. It takes a complete other extreme in that sense as well. So you're really starting to see the evolution of AI coming from, again, the data science world and a group of people working in the back room, if you will, to the forefront, and where AI is now becoming a much more embedded part of our day-to-day lives. And as you mentioned, whether it's in IoT devices, whether it's being incorporated into computer vision capabilities, which is actually a big one that we see today, or whether it's simply being used to simplify a person's life with things like robot vacuums and stuff like that. You now see this much larger prevalence of the technology in your everyday life.
Yes, and Nelson, I must say, I totally agree with that phase where we were in POCs and research. It has stabilized in some way, or at least it's in the direction, and it's accelerated to stabilizing into production workloads, more so in the industry now than about 2019. And in 2019, I was doing AI heavily here at Microsoft. I was in the Southeast Asia region and Australia. So I can tell you that difference for sure across industries and how enterprises specifically have taken it away, especially within the pandemic, and that growth has been extremely accelerated. So yeah. Another trend I would definitely call out with this growth is everyday AI. Okay. Now, the tools that we use like you, me, any person, or someone not even in the tech industry, somebody using something as simple as Word or PowerPoint, when we've seen these products evolve into giving us intuitive design ideas, right? When we put in text, so a lot of our presentation has definitely improved. And I can tell you for myself, I'm not a PPT geek, but those design ideas have really transformed my presentation skills. So that's just one bit of what we are using in everyday. So I think that's phenomenal for acceptance of AI in everyday life.
I would say I think back in 2019 or even before, the average person out there was scared about AI, right? Was worried that the world was going to change and then the robots were going to take over and we're all going to be avatars or whatever we're going to be, right? And I think today they're actually accepting that the advancements of AI is actually going to help their roles and help society and help sustainability, you name it, right? It's not going to prevent them. And then they're also looking forward to, they now expect it, right? Everything you have today, they expect there's going to be some side of efficiencies with AI. Mm-hmm. And they're wondering, where's the future? So now that we've accepted it, what are you seeing that is really going to take that to the new level that, again, they can't live without and they want more? And what are those? So either one of you, where do you want to start?
I'll let Devanshi go first on this one.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Nelson and Penny. I would say, so robotic process automation, and you referenced a bit of it, Penny, just now.
Yeah.
Robotic process automation has been around for a bit. And we were scared that it's going to take away our jobs. Like, in Skynet, it didn't end well with the Terminator. So, but that's not it. It's about repetitive processes. The decision making and the control thinking is still within the humans. You are surrounded with it. It's just making you more efficient. It's like we are back for Industry 3.0 when machines were taking over and labor was being more efficient. It's not that everything went away. It's just a generational change into more advanced technology being more democratized and available to everyone. So I feel, for example, RPA integrating with AI and ML in particular would just create possibilities for so much of data-driven insights and solutions and new arenas that we haven't even explored on how they could grow.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely augmented analytics. It tends to be the phrase that you often hear. So it's about analytics, AI, ML, these sorts of things, really augmenting either an individual's life personally and through the ways in which you interact with different applications and systems and your phone or whatever it might be, all the way straight through to the enterprise. And as Devanshi mentioned, things like robotic process automation, being able to really expand how much data you can process and the speed by which you can process it in order to drive different decisions, make interactions much more real-time in many cases. This is no longer the case where some AI model is now run overnight and you get a bunch of answers the following day and now you can make a decision. It's actually in line, it's live, it's right in the stream of the real-time data. Right? These decisions are being driven interactively. And, Penny said that we're not, are we going to be all avatars here in the future? I think there's actually a little bit of truth to that. When you start to look at some of the work that's being done around the blending of the digital and physical worlds, so this is now getting into augmented reality and virtual reality, or even some of the notions that you hear about the so-called metaverse and all the worlds that are powering the metaverse, if you will. And I realize that's a little bit out there, but you did ask about that. I think obviously AI, ML, those kinds of capabilities are a key component of that, and so that it's this evolution. It's the embeddability. It's the use of analytics to really augment our experiences. And I think as a result, many of our experiences are going to be enriched. But it also does bring up a lot of additional considerations, shall we say. Again, when you look at deep fakes or the ethical aspects around AI. So there's going to be this whole other world that's going to I think really start to emerge and get a lot more focus, because it is much more prevalent in our everyday world and not just something that, again, is done in the back room.
I'll just add a little bit to it. So I feel we can categorize it in three pillars, okay? The future and how I see it and how I've been reading the market. One is AI engineering and the advancements we make with making ML ops and then AI ops part of right from dev to ops. Everything is to do with AI, anomaly detection, etc. Now, the second pillar would be AI on the edge. The advancements that we're seeing could be categorized right from the cloud to the edge. So all integrated in one set of operations for enterprises. So we meet the customer or we meet the partner, we meet the user where they are. And third being, like Nelson just called out, ethical or responsible AI, which forms really a center pillar to everything that we do across with AI and augmented reality and the future of technology in a sense.
Yeah, that's actually very good. We see that. I call it, if you pull it back a little bit, I call it managing the bookends. So you can have machine learning and AI and these sorts of things, but they're only going to be as good as the data that you give it. And so you've got this precursor, this focus on data prep, data quality. These technologies have kind of gone through waves. Everybody was focused on data quality, and then that kind of went away for a while, and now it's coming back again, I find, because of the fact that if you give your models bad data, you're not going to, you can't expect good answers on that part of it. And then the other part of the bookend is and Devanshi mentioned it already, is kind of the model ops. You have all these models now. What do you do? How do you manage them? How do you monitor them? How do you deploy them? How do you know when they need to be retrained or rebased? Those kinds of things. That is the other side of the equation when it comes to looking at the use of analytical models.
That's interesting. So you mentioned these three pillars. This is fascinating. What if I was a company and I was an enterprise and I wanted to start out to do more with AI? Where would I start then? What would be your advice? What would you see would give me the biggest bang for my buck, so to speak, in regards to these three pillars? Is it all of them at one time? Is it a starts where? Where would I go? Where would I go?
Do you want me to take a dig at it first?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
sure.
I've got I know what my answer is, because I get asked this a lot.
Okay. So if you're someone from the tech industry and you're looking to migrate into a career in AI, I would suggest it's every day. And I'll tell you how I started. It wasn't that hard, I would say. It was just more transitional. Okay. I was doing app modernization a lot, and I saw AI pick up in the sense of bots and some intelligent insights for applications itself. So I had to go ahead and build on my hard skills to be able to make that happen for a customer here at Microsoft. And that got me deeper into the knows and hows of how do you create models? How do you make them work? How do you integrate them through the ecosystem of a solution, which is database, streams, applications, so monitoring. So there's a lot around it as well. And if you're not someone who is deep into statistics is great if you want to go into ML. But if you're not someone who's deep into statistics, that's fine. You can always look at the other aspects of AI, which is AI-infused apps that I chose to go deep on and work with customers. So hard skills are a must, and you can do it in two ways. Either you go ahead and get a professional degree, or you could go ahead and get yourself certified through different courses. Take up actually everyday courses from LinkedIn Learning, for example, and get yourself up to speed. I think that will differentiate you, and you can move forward.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. I mean, the when I get asked that question, so there's definitely the element from the career standpoint, absolutely, and I think that is a perfect way to go about it. It's in many cases I find what helps, especially if you're an enterprise and you're looking to see, well, how and where can I leverage AI, ML, in my organization? Where do I start with that? I always take it back to start with the use case. Too many people get lost in the technology. Yeah. And I know that that's great and wonderful, and you're going to need that eventually, but you won't really know exactly what you need until you know what it is that you're trying to solve. And so I always say, start with the use case, and then get a handle on what that use case, what its dependencies are. So again, do you have the data to support the use case? And do you even know where that data is? Is it of high quality? Right? Otherwise, you're going to be struggling with bad data to try and create a model, which you're never going to get a good answer anyway because of that as a result. So I always say, start with the use case, understand the dependencies and whatnot around that use case. And then from there, bring in all the people that went through the process that Devanshi just mentioned.
That's great. So I'm just going to end it all with a little bit. There was a question in regards, and I think we've covered this a bit, but kind of how you connecting AI with predictive analytics. So we did talk about that, all about the data and all that, but how about maybe a little tighter connection of that, how it's going to help this whole predictive modeling that we're doing today.
Okay, just to start with a comment on that. I mean, predictive analytics tends to be used as it's a term that kind of describes a certain use of AI/ML in, let's say, in an enterprise, right? So you're trying to predict that a piece of equipment is going to fail, not has failed, and that's kind of too late. Or you're trying to predict the way in which you should engage with a customer based on prior behaviors and what they're currently doing with you at this point in time. You're trying to predict instances of fraud, right? So these are all use cases that you're trying to augment and support with the use of analytics. And so you're using historical patterns, probably as a starting point, to derive these predictive models, and then you're embedding those predictive models in these applications. So whether it's an application that is an IoT application, listening to IoT device streams, so that you can predict equipment failure, whether it's actually being embedded in the transaction stream, your financial transactions, so that you can predict fraud, those kinds of things. It's an augmentation of what it is that you have in place already, but you're using it in embedded fashion, right? Just kind of like we've talked about. So that predictive analytics is sort of the capability you're introducing. AI/ML is how you're going about enhancing that capability.
Perfect.
Absolutely. And I would just expand a little on it. That was perfect, Nelson. Now, predictive analytics is possible across different industries, and in a sense, in every other industry where AI is possible. And a couple of them are really hot at this time, like energy, automotive, high tech, and telecom, for example. So it's a use case that fits in different fashions across industries. It cannot be replicated, and it depends on, like Nelson said, we need to identify the use case we're trying to solve for to build on a predictive model that we would like to incorporate and embed to grow that use case.
That's perfect. Well, we're out of time. We could talk for hours, I know, on this subject. It's so fascinating. I'm sure we'll be back another time to talk even deeper. I want to thank everyone for joining. Thanks again. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thanks all.